Alors, bonsoir.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of the Standing Committee on Strategies and Public Policies. This is a meeting during which we will have presentations from the public.
Meeting, but there is no decisions coming forward at this point tonight. Alors, il n'y a aucune décision qui est prise ce soir, aucune.
No decision will be taken this evening, no resolutions either. We're having presentations to give us information to councillors on activities, things that are going on with different associations. So that's it. Without further ado, we shall begin with a presentation of the volunteer driver program with Debbie LeBlanc, Kelly Taylor.
Providing affordable transportation in our neck of the woods and in the region in general. Bonsoir, good evening.
My name is Debbie LeBlanc. I'm the volunteer coordinator with the
Je suis coordonnatrice avec le Centre de bénévoles.
who is the manager of Rural Rides for WA Transpo. And I also would like to acknowledge Ted Cadet. Ted Cadet is a board member recently on our board representing the city of Dieppe for WA Transpo. And thank you for having us. WA Transpo, commonly known as Urban Rural Rides, is a volunteer-based transportation service providing
Urban Rural Rides at
Our service is designed to improve the quality of life for people with little or no access to affordable transportation. Who are our clients? Seniors, those with disabilities, low-income families, and individuals and newcomers. Basically, anyone who cannot afford transportation because of an economic or physical barrier. For example, a bus may be practical and affordable for a client, but if they need access to a family doctor outside the city, sometimes you can't get that and you really have to stay within your own locality. Clients may also need help getting to a food bank, may not be able to carry some of their groceries, because it's quite a distance to take the bus, and they cannot have access to a taxi, of course, because of the cost. Some clients have a mobility issue that requires some assistance. They're able to transport with someone helping them, but they wouldn't necessarily have to use like Ability Transit, that sort of thing. Excuse me. How it works. Clients register with the service and then call to book a ride 72 hours in advance. We have to ask 72 hours in advance because that only gives, of course, the drivers enough notice as well as the dispatcher to actually coordinate the drive. They're contacted by a transportation coordinator to confirm their driver request, and the dispatcher matches the driver request with a volunteer driver. The volunteer driver picks up the client at a designated time, then takes them to their appointment, waits for them, or picks them up, and another client, or can pick up another client at the same time, because we try to carpool and car share as much as we can. Volunteer drivers are required to carry $2 million liability insurance. We will reimburse them up to $80 per year because some still only carry $1 million. We really have to ask for $2 million, and that's going to be standardized across the province as well soon, and we will pay for that because we really don't want it to cost a volunteer. We also ask for a criminal records check, 2 reference checks, and of course they have to have a well-maintained vehicle. We do pay our drivers 41 cents a kilometer. Who are our volunteers? Mostly seniors and retired individuals, anyone who has a vehicle who really cares and wants to help out with this cause in the community. They have to really have the desire to help others, of course, and have that empathy. The Volunteer Center of Southeastern New Brunswick has been providing transportation to the clients through the volunteer driver program since 1999, Teledrive since 2013, and Rural Ride since 2014. The combined groups are serving 650 clients, providing 750 plus rides a month. For example, for the year coming up, this year, 2020, we're going to reach over 10,000 drives. Struggling to meet the growing demand as is projected, as I say, 10,000 drives. That's really one of the things that we're looking at right now, is trying to even reach that demand. Program stats. I wanted to show you through the City of Dieppe the stats. As of 1999, last year, 275 urban clients was with my program, the Volunteer Driver Program, last year. 45 clients from Dieppe requested a drive in the municipality of Dieppe itself. Approximately 20 clients from Dieppe requested a drive to go to either Riverview or Moncton, and approximately 40 clients from Moncton or Riverview requested a drive to come to the municipality of Dieppe. We filled 4,000 urban rides. 475 of those drives were to, or as I say, from Dieppe. They were going to a food bank, they were going to an education course, they were having medical rehabilitation, they were having chemotherapy, dialysis, radiation, all of the above. Clients are referred by community food banks, Horizon Health Network, Vitalité, social development, municipalities, and of course the nonprofit communities. New paid clients, not necessarily referred, but are finding us through Facebook, website, public service announcements, new articles, and of course word of mouth. We have been also working with Professor Trevor Hansen at UNB and the other groups in the province to track ride stats, including the location, the user number, the stops, the kilometers, the driver's time, because all of this helps in, of course, compiling the statistical information, as well as when we are applying for funding proposals. Now I'll let Kelly take over.
En 2070, ces trois groupes
In 2017, these groups worked together to offer the services in Tetra as a pilot.
et a indiqué qu'il existe un besoin énorme pour la transportation et qu'en travaillant ensemble, les groupes pourraient économiser.
We
et
worked
fournir-
together, these groups, we could save money and furnish services to all the municipalities. In 2018, the service was launched in other regions. Memram-Cook, Shedia, Kapeli, Bobassa S, and Memram-Cook. For the Francophone regions, bilingual drivers were hired to service all areas. 3 groups are part of Urban Rural Rides, or WA Transpo. It was constituted on 2019. The board of directors includes representatives from many regions that we serve, including Ted Godek, who sits on the committee. The budget for 2019-2020 was approved with ESIC, Economic Social Inclusion Corporation, for $175,000, but with there was a limit of public financing, so it was reduced to $50,000. It was difficult to cover the expenses. We started the year with a director and a transport coordinator full-time, and the director of Teledrive left, and there are other possibilities for hiring. We have a lack of financing for the hiring. The workload is much too heavy for a director and a coordinator. 2 coordinators at part-time work 20 hours a week. They were hired by contract to reduce the task for the director. And this job needs more than 40 hours per week, and they need help. Last year, the transport coordinator answered to the calls from the regions. The coordinator of transportation will answer the calls in the region. The funds that we have maintained most services, but we find that we are lacking funds to cover expenses. Je vais continuer en anglais maintenant.
So the funds accessed for 2019
Pour
$1,000 that we had carryover from all of the three groups, and an $11,160 United Way grant. Our funds secured for the upcoming, we're now in 2020, include a $50,000 Regional Service Commission amount, of which $13,000 was contributed by the City of Dieppe. Our anticipated funding for 2020 includes approximately $33,600 expected from ride fees, because we do charge a nominal fee for transportation. $20,000, we're anticipating funds to come from the MLAs. We have submitted a request for them for bridge funding. The $50,000 from ESIC, which is set aside for transportation, and $20,000 comprised of donations from various municipalities and service groups, bringing our total funds for 2020 to $123,600. So our ask to you today, we're asking for a couple of things. One, we're asking that you would support what we're doing by using your resources, your Facebook page, your community papers, your website, or anything that you communicate with your residents, that you would communicate this service, and that you would help communicate our ongoing need for volunteer drivers through all of those sources that you have available to you. And as we do with all municipalities, when we share what we are doing, we go in with an ask that each municipality contribute to our benevolent fund, and we generally ask for 75 cents per resident, which, based on your current population of 25,000, would work out to approximately 18,000.
Just to add on to that, first of all, I would like to acknowledge Luke. He's been actually working with me and coordinating and having me present you this evening. The Volunteer Center, as I say, in conversation with Luke, we spoke about some of the clients.
Can you move your microphone a little bit over so that the translators and the public, our worldwide web public,
Thank you. I heard it's 72,000.
Yeah, there you go.
No pressure. The Volunteer Center has been, as I said, in conversation with Luc Richard regarding some of Dieppe's referred clients using WA Transpo. The urban manager, myself, would be actually responsible to register these clients and recruit any additional volunteer drivers that would be required. The clients would contact WA Transpo number to request a drive, same as what any other client would do that was accessing the service. As in conversation, it is understood that many of these clients may have a mobility issue. They could include using a fold-up walker, wheelchair, etc. We are also working with a senior home in the rural area right now that provides a mobility van for some of these special requests, and it's something that we're looking at perhaps doing in Moncton, Riverview, and Dieppe as well. It is the intent, as I say, to contact some of these senior homes and see how we can work more collaboratively. Some of these have a mobility van in a senior home that's actually just sitting there a lot of the time and not even being accessed. So we're really trying, we would have supply the drivers, we're just trying to see if we can access that service. Some of these clients that Luke and I have spoke about may also require assistance, and part of maybe a pilot project that we could put together would be including the recruitment of volunteer guides. In other words, individuals that could actually go with these people that are wanting to access the transportation, because sometimes they're not able to go in for their appointment by themselves. They may need help with a mobility issue, that sort of thing. Because with the WA Transpo program right now, it is strictly a pick-up, drop-off service. It's not like an enhancement, like, as I say, like almost a leisure buddy or a greeter that would go with them. It's something that Luke and I spoke about, and we'd kind of like to maybe see if this could happen. We'd recruit volunteer greeters at the same time. Funding for this additional service would come from, of course, the funding from Dieppe. What we would do is Luke and I are just, as I say, at the preliminary conversation. We don't have anything concrete right now. We'd like to maybe set together, see how much it would actually cost to put together something like this as a pilot project for perhaps for 6 months, and then see how we could go from there. Part of that funding that would come from Dieppe for this project, of course, would be for the dispatcher's salary, and of course for just the recruitment and referral of volunteer drivers, like in this area, that would come from Dieppe, and just a small administration fee, which we all ask for anyways, as far as when we're coordinating a program, but we're not at that stage yet.
Okay, thank you.
We gave you a lot of information.
Yeah. So, question de la part des membres du Conseil, Monsieur Godette.
Questions from council. I have a couple comments. Firstly,
L'administration, on vient apprendre des choses.
I'm just learning stuff that we don't know about, nor the public, but a big problem with this organization is that we have a situation where we could be victims of our own success. The funds are there, but they don't meet the needs for clients and people who need the service. Lobbying that we must do now on the province is to increase these funds, but at the same time, it will reduce expenses on the other side of the coin with the province. At the time being, we have ambulance who are transporting people to hospital for tests. People are ill, and they're taken to the hospital. They could have gone by this group, but we don't have the means. So it's starting to become difficult. If we think that 10,000 people this year is what we hope for, urban rise, rural rise will be forced to be very strict with respect to the people they'll be giving services to, though the service will be limited. And the request from people who have no other means, and it will be for health reasons and well-being reasons. So I think it's important because I met people who were volunteers and you must admire them. One in particular lives in Dorchester and he drives people to the Moncton Hospital for tests and treatments. Sometimes it takes a whole day and he has to stay nearby waiting to take the person back home, and he's not paid for it. This is all volunteering. And there are many cases of people like this. They spend hours just waiting. With this committee, we have dispatchers and volunteers, but we need 2 days ahead of time to make plans, because it's hard to find another driver if one can't make it. So the city is going down the right road, like to support this, and all the organizations and people who need help in the municipality. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Godette. Any other question from councillors? No other questions?
Your presentation, we know more about you, and I'm sure that with Luc, at some point in time, we'll see a recommendation coming to council in some form or another. So, thanks again.
Merci.
Bonsoir.
The next group, we have Guillaume Doiron from the Dieppe Youth House. With Kevin Lynch, who is president of the board of directors. Hello, everyone. I'm Kevin Lynch. I'm president of the board of directors of the Dieppe Youth House. since about a year and a half ago. Guillaume Tuaro is here. He's our new director since last August. I would like to mention the presence of other members of our council that are here today, of our board, treasurer, Mr. Bertin, François Glavette, Sonia Bobino, who represents the city of Dieppe. And as well, we have a community intervener and our young members who are here tonight as well. Thank you for your presence. The mission of the Youth House, it's a community center nonprofit for youth from 12 to 18 years old to express themselves, develop and put value to their identity, and do exercise activities and services, and it's safe and stimulating. So we want to welcome youth, give them a place where they're comfortable. If they need somebody to talk to, we have people there to help them. And we try to offer them many services alongside schools. Sometimes help them to write the resume, teach them things that they don't teach in schools. So we want to give them services. We have an executive director and directors, and the organization for extracurricular activities. It's the resources for our house as well. We have a director for the youth who's been there with us. And then our youth house, which is principally activities organized by the assistant director. We have a community intervener, and we have monitors as well, and educators. We have funds that we use for the youth house. We have $100,000 from the city of Dieppe annually for many years now. From this amount, we have $46,000 for the community intervener for salary, insurance, passenger insurance, telephone, and travel. We have $54,000 for programming and operations of the organization. That could be activities for youth. Operations can be a bit of everything. So that's how we use these funds annually. As I mentioned, we have the extracurricular activities as well, and we have financing campaigns every year. We want to do that more to get more money to be able to give more services to youth. I'm going to talk about the community intervener and give you more details about his role and what he does and what activities, events we have at the youth house. So our intervener, Jeremy Guittard, is with us tonight. Each week, during the evening, he organizes activities, one which was popular last year in 2019. He started in February 2019. We have music and jam nights and video games with youth. That was very popular. Another file that he takes care of is a program with Mathieu Martin on essential competencies in the workplace. So this man is a community worker who works with Mathieu Martin So we have relationships with the house, the youth house, and the school to support youth as much as possible. We have a new activity in 2019 in October, November, is to invite 5 students from PCMT, they go to SPCA, for instance, to do volunteer work, and it shows them what the workplace is like. They will go every Thursday. Jeremy goes with them to the SPCA, and usually 3 times a week, Jeremy meets 2 young people from Mathieu Martin to have discussions with them and try to help them to face the future, respecting work or their interests. They could work on their resume, or he could help them get ready to find work during the weekends. For instance, those are things that we do as well. We supervise suppers and the park, skate park. That's very popular. And then hockey park as well. We'll talk about it a bit later, but these attractions attract many youth. It's popular during the season where the weather is good. Right now, the skateboard is closed. We have to find other things, but when it's nice, it goes very well there. Within the community, he's implicated with Pro Youth of Dieppe, and he does community visits. It goes 4 times a week, if possible 5. Those are visits that he does during classroom hours. He will meet youth that in most cases should be in class, but they're not. So he'll go beside the Mathieu Martin school on the trails where kids hang out, and he'll go talk to them. And he'll go in the parking lot of the NBCC where a lot of youth hang out. Or to Tim Hortons, there's one not far from Mathieu Martin, or he'll go to Champlain Place. He does that quite often. And in his role in 2019, he did a presentation on drug addiction, and he'll do more for youth on different subjects. It could be vaping, for instance. In 2020, he'll have presentations on vaping and other subjects as well. With respect to community workers, in 2019 we had 255 interventions. It's about 1 intervention per day with youth, and it can vary. We have problems which sometimes are very sensible. He will meet a student in his office, then he'll write a report on the discussions and suggestions. Sometimes on lunch hours, we have sometimes 50, 60 youth that come to the youth house during lunchtime. And we have a canteen there, or they can bring their lunch. And often we have interventions with youth. The subjects which are most popular:
drugs, alcohol, intimidation, suicide, bullying. The other 25% is something different because there are other subjects also, and for which there are interventions, but it's just a couple from each. We have 27% there of others. Concerning participation of youth, evenings, weekends, and summer 2019. Like I said earlier, for us, it's pretty clear. It's pretty easy to see on the pie chart here that during the months when it's nice weather, we're talking about May, June, July, September, October. That's the time of year when, because of the hockey park, the wheel park and all that, it's just the months when it's nice weather. So it's for the other times, it's for the house, youth house. For the distribution of the visits, as you can see, mainly during lunch hour, 50 youth, usually sometimes it's 60, 75 youth, depending on different things. So lunches are really popular. Ball hockey, the skate park also, evenings, weekends. We also have activities, outings. For example, tomorrow they have a group that we're going to take the van or the bus, depending on how many youth we have, but we're going to go see a film. So that happens on a regular basis. For 2020, priorities, like you were able to see maybe in the graph, things that we're going to try to do is to have more use during the evenings and weekends, because the youth house, for those who know it a little better, well, right now, at this time of year, during the day, the youth are at school and it opens only at 7:30, because we have to wait for the younger ones who are in the extracurricular center that they leave, different acts, different laws, so we have to really watch out depending on the ages. So it opens starting 5:30 in the evening, and right now usually we're open till 8:30. During the summer it's later, but it's one of the challenges that we have to bring in more youth at this time of year, evenings and weekends. So for 2020 we're going to try to find solutions to increase the amount of kids coming there. We want to continue also to develop partnerships with Mathieu Martin. We talked about it a little bit earlier. They are our youth. They come to the youth house, so we want to continue to help them. Another thing we want to do is to increase the visibility of the house on the social networks. There's a committee now, Action Jeunesse. There's a subcommittee that was set up with them at the last meeting. So they're going to give me a hand concerning social media to make sure that we're more present, make it more popular with the youth. So we're going to make sure that we have a good presence there. We're talking about Instagram, Facebook, things like that. Another thing is offering, like we said, we have a canteen. So we're going to try to offer in 2020 more health options, obviously, since we started in 2020. For example, fruit. Before that, we didn't necessarily have fruit. Now we do have fruit. So those who want to come eat during lunch, they buy things from our canteen if they want. If they want to eat more healthy, there'll be more options than the ones that we had before. Last thing is to also make sure that the community worker is participating in different activities that attract the youth. I had planned something for 2020. It was something to reserve a part of his schedule during the week to go have an activity outside of the youth house. For example, in January, beginning of January, there wasn't necessarily many things going on. So in that case, he would go, for example, on Friday night, he would go ice skating at 1604, Place 1604. I think he went last Friday, but it was very cold, so there weren't that many people. But the previous Friday, there were quite a lot more. So, but that's one example. Okay, when there are things, for example, during summer, there's a Mercredi show, or there's a festival, activities where youth usually tend to congregate. So that would be one of the objectives for him, the community worker, to be more present. He'll be talking to them, to tell them about the house, where it is, what we can offer, etc. Thank you. Questions from members of council? Monsieur Alain. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for the presentation. I was one of the councillors who asked for more information on the community worker. It's very important, and even more so now because of what's going on. So I'm really happy to see that you're proactive, Jeremy, by when you go see businesses at the Happy Trail. I was at Mathieu Martin, so I know the Happy Trail. So there are a lot of things like that, and we have to be proactive to go see what's going on, talk to the businesses to find out what the trends are, find out what's going on. So do we have a new resource that's called Uniplex? We do have one. So we already have the skate park, we have the ball hockey. In Zone Connexion of last summer, did that have an effect on the participation at the youth house? Did more people go to Connection Zone rather than going to... I don't think that we noticed any difference. The skate park was pretty busy. It's different from what you could find at Zone Connexion, but I don't think we saw at least no negative effect. Are there, what would be a new resource or a new something that the youth would like to see at the house? That's interesting. I mean, we're trying to figure out when we have participatory budgets. Obviously, our youth who go to the house already tend to prefer the skate park or something else in connection with that. Something that we had in our last AGM that was requested is to transform the skate park into a park inside, so that could be used during the winter. That's some project. But right now, I don't think we have a specific piece of equipment that the youth are asking for, rather than, well, they want access to the one that we have already. But it's something that, I mean, our ears are open. We try to involve more the youth in a youth committee to basically to be able to communicate with them, to find out what would be interesting for them, what we could do. But right now, I don't have a specific project to say that, hey, we're trying to raise funds for something. No. But something we'll be very willing to work with our youth and our members. And we want to try to diversify the members. We just don't want to continue something like the skate park. We don't want to put that aside, but we also want to attract other youth, not necessarily just for skateboard or something else. We want to get all sorts of other kids. Yeah, so basically you're a community tool that's working. So all I can say is continue the nice work. Good luck. You have the community support. You can always come and see us. It's important for us. Thank you, Madam Councillor Le Boutillier. Question. I know it's at the AGM. I mean, what's the total budget for the youth house? I have my treasurer here. Or inaudible comment for lack of microphone. Yes, maybe go to the microphone for interpretation necessities. So it's just for the youth house. We're talking about operating of 350,000 a year for operational. That's excluding activities of the extracurricular center. So if you can buy both of them, we're about $1 million a year. Thank you. I have another question, please. So, on average, if I understood, you're looking at 50 to 75 clients per week, the youth? No, it's more than that, because just on lunch hour every day, there's approximately 50 youth on average. So that's on a daily basis, every day. So there are youth who come evenings, some weekends. So obviously, I was explaining earlier that right now, at this time of the year, it's not as busy because the skate park is closed and the ball hockey park is closed. We still have our 60, 70 youth during lunch. And there's some youth who also come in the evenings. Thank you. Thank you. Madame Arsenault. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Maybe it's a question for Jeremy. Excellent presentation, but I'm really curious. You make presentations on drug addiction with the street drugs that we have in our communities. Also, the presentations that you do you do some outside in the community? Yeah, the first one was in primary school, Saint-Antoine. In Saint-Antoine right now, we're collaborating with Mathieu Martin, and we have plans to have more presentations at the Carrefour de l'Acadie or at Mathieu Martin or in any type of organization in general in the region, anybody who can benefit from our services. For example, the Dieppe library. Yeah, if there's Lou McNairn. Do you do them in English also? Yeah, I could do them in English. No problem with that. Great, thank you. Doing nice work. Because it's really necessary work in our community. Thank you, Madame Arsenault. Monsieur Godet. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question, quickly. It's concerning lunches. More than 50 students each lunch time. Have you ever thought of organizing what I would call lunch and learns during the lunches, where you can bring a personality, an artist or a business person or somebody who works in trades, or also to explain a little bit what they're doing and what kind of opportunities there are in the future. It seems to me that the lunches, I know that in some schools, I don't know if it's here, but I know in Quebec, lunches, students have the possibility of going to meet people from society to learn a little bit about what's going on. So just want to know if you had thought of something like this, or even maybe ask the students to organize it whereby they can choose the topics. For example, culturally, you could ask an artist like Roland Gauvin or anybody else to come and basically talk about his likes and dislikes of the career. Yeah, we thought about it. Recently, I just talked to somebody who wants to make a presentation on robotics. Things basically that happen at the University of Moncton, but he's willing to come and meet the youth at the house during a lunch to talk about his project. There aren't that many others that are scheduled yet, but it's certainly something that we'll be looking into, because at lunchtime, I have the impression that we're always trying to maybe get some learning. How could I say that would be organized, for example, in a scientific session. But somebody who works, for example, in a studio could come and explain what what he or she does in a radio studio. I'm talking about the individual personal experience of someone in society, anybody. And I think that it should be the students who choose these people, because they might have an interest in this or that thing, and hey, we'd like to talk to this guy or something like that. Not necessarily to learn something like in a school sense, but to learn a little bit about that person's experiences and in that specific job. Thank you, Mr. Godet. Are there any questions? If not, Guillaume, thank you. And thanks to all the volunteers who get involved. It's so important. It's the basis, it's the source of all municipality organizations. I mean, without our volunteers, their personal involvement, there wouldn't be too many things going on in our beautiful city. So really thank you for your community participation. Next item, I think that we're going to go. Hello, kids. Hello. So the next presentation is going to be on the pilot project, One Bike, One City. And we haven't started pedaling. We're not moving anywhere here. Oh, here it comes. There it is. Hello, everyone. How is everything? I'm Mike Fossis-Paquette. I'm a student at kinesiology and leisure at the University of Moncton, 4th year. And I'm here to thank you for your support and to present what I did this summer. I wrote a memoir, How to Meet Seniors by using the rickshaw, which is the bicycle. It's a pilot project that there was in Dieppe. It's first summer. So before going any further, I'm going to show you a video that is going to basically explain what it is. It's estimated that 15% of the population are seniors in Canada, 25% of the population in Canada by 2036. One out of 4 seniors is at risk of social isolation, and that is basically very little contact with someone else. It's defined as a lack of social interaction, dangerous for the health, depression, bad physical health, problems with mental health. It could also lead to suicide. They show that intergenerational interaction can slow down the isolation phenomenon. There's a project to counter-effect the social isolation. So we are presenting the pilot project, One Bike, One City. The objective, so something that tricycles pedaled by youth bring seniors, something that's promotion for lifestyle. It can help them to live happily. It's good for the physical and mental health. There are also rewards, among which the increase of social esteem, participation, or feeling of belonging to the community, gratifying, enriching experiences for youth and seniors. This is what it is told, basically. We need outings, we need don't have enough resources to do it. It's a way of appreciating community. It's the first time that I was doing something over the last 10 years, and it's something that's good, and it could be good for the municipality. General experience, it's something that's gratifying, this work, to help seniors. It's something that you know that you're having a positive impact. So you all see the PowerPoint now? So like I said, I'm going to start by explaining what the organization is, what's a tricycle, a short project of the pilot project, why we want to do it, the research and our hypotheses, the objectives, our methodology, the results, and at the end to really show you, there'll be discussion and recommendation and a short conclusion. So what is a bike city? An organization, charity organization, 2013, things useful for seniors. Tricycles would be driven by 13 to 25 years old. It's to increase the well-being and to help students also in doing this work, and that helps them to succeed at school, because younger employees are not paid in money but in grants for secondary school. Like you can see in the video, the rickshaws, the tricycles, it's like a bike, 2 wheels in the back, one in front, and there's a room for 2 people in the back and 1 peddler or 1 driver. The pilot project this summer, it's a participatory project in Dieppe, $28,000 over 2 years. It's so rides, recreational, free for seniors, and 2 student staff. Why the research? The problem, the way is its population aging, boomers, and there's it's increase and isolation with the seniors that touches 1 out of 4 seniors. So the hypotheses, the benefits of the program in general would increase participation, lower social isolation, good for the mind, friends, relationships. It reduces depression, social skills, a sense of belonging, positive social lifestyles for youth and for seniors, and help Dieppe to become a zone blue or blue zone. It's not where we live longer or but where we live better. So the objective of the study was to try to find out what the seniors' experience was, the youth's experience, students, to evaluate reality and the needs of the seniors, to document the means that are used now, or what a tricycle can use, how can it be used to break down isolation. So the methodology was a qualitative survey with a quantitative survey, so interviews with students. There were questionnaires also for each senior who used the services, and then we analyzed the data. Some results, as we saw in the video, basically these are quotes that the youth told us during the interviews. You see here, for example, shows the reality of the seniors. It says, like me, my ass asked me, she says that she doesn't want to go out, and she also is scared of public transport. She doesn't like going into a car, and my mother was really surprised when she had accepted to go in the tricycle, but she really liked it, and it's the first time we saw that she wanted to go out, so positive results. And here, what do we learn by this pilot project? It has a direct impact on seniors, and for youth, it's something rare for youth, whereby they're going to be working with seniors. So there's a change of the perception of the reality with seniors, the understanding that was brought forth. I mean, they rode with them, so there's a social isolation. There was a positive attitude towards seniors and towards the youth. They felt values, and it's an pleasant experience. It was also to basically look around Dieppe to see what there is. So a few recommendations. We'd like the project to continue after 2020, to encourage this program in other municipalities, because the Dieppe is the first one outside of Quebec, to maybe plan the new model of tricycle, because sometimes it was difficult to get in, so it's not comfortable, a little too small. Mosquitoes, sometimes there were really a lot of mosquitoes, and for seniors it was very difficult. Add a step or to get in, maybe a handle, better suspension, better security, maybe helmets, a belt. Couple of suggestions that we received also was more rides, more outings, better advertising, because the advertising actually, the reservations were done by phone and there was no other way. So it wasn't on Facebook yet. So some people were saying, oh, we never saw that, never heard of it. So reservation online also, instead of just maybe also see better adapt or develop the downtown for these things. Some areas it was too wide, or sometimes because there was too much traffic, so there was no room for them. As conclusions, we figured that the project contributed in the countering the social isolation. There was a good satisfaction of the users, and we saw that there was a need for this project for the population in Dieppe and elsewhere, because it was really busy. People were calling, and some days it was constantly full. Positive results for youth and for seniors. And the result of the research is to justify an intergenerational project in Dieppe, contribute to the efforts of implementing this type of project in other communities, and as a tool for other communities. Thank you for your attention. Thank you. Questions, comments? Monsieur Thibodeau. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was asking myself, how busy was it last summer? The number of participants, I think we had 69 participants who filled out the questionnaires, and now there's a part satisfaction, but on the 69, there was a 5 out of 5 was the mark for appreciation. There were other tricycles? No, there was just one tricycle. 2 drivers, but 1 tricycle. So according to how busy you were, you think that we should add one? Yes, that would be the better option, because per day, 1 tricycle was doing just 1 area or 1 home. So obviously, if there was another tricycle, we could have 2 homes at the same time. Thank you, Madame Le Boutillier. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question was answered. How much did it cost, Monsieur Richard? Contribution of 14,000. We also had $5,000 from Assomption Vie. Essentially $9,000. 19, sorry. Anybody else? Thank you, you did that well. I think your teacher is probably happy, I guess.
Next item. Urban mobility. Mr. Richard. Good evening, councillors. This presentation is to share with you, I'll give you a quick context. The council, these past few years, has put a lot of emphasis and investments in our public transport. And as it has been successful, we have 3 routes, 30 minutes each during the week, and improvements as well. We bought 2 new buses, so we have 4. And we put a lot of emphasis in that, and there's been a lot of progress. But now we're at the crossroads. Because Destination 2040 is our plan for transport in this region. To go to the next step, we expect for 2040 that transport will go not only every 45 minutes, but not every 30 minutes, but 15 minutes. So we'll need investments, substantial investments for the buses, an increase of riders as well, because they'll be more frequent. That's an important factor. But we shall always have a challenge that we have right now. Certain regions aren't served by public transportation, or some people cannot access the bus stops either because of disabilities. So with all this, we must reflect on a future vision for public transportation in Dieppe. So the focus of my presentation is to share 4 new approaches that take place in other Canadian municipalities as well. So I want your feedback afterwards. And I'd like to know which option we should consider as a municipality. Right now, people go to work by car alone. So there's a lot of traffic at sometimes, and public transportation can't answer to all the needs for different reasons. So there's still a stigma and a negative image about public transportation that we should settle. Access for people, handicapped people, we have accessible transportation, but some people can't access it. So we have to make a link between public transportation and accessible transportation. So it's quite a challenge with our aging population. The first case is I want to talk about Belleville, Ontario. They're bigger than us, and they put into place an on-demand transportation on the web, so they can access a bus, public transportation like Uber, but it's a bus that comes, so it's a flexible route rather than being a fixed route. The information is found online. You can register. And they had a 12-month pilot project, but it took a while before they got to this level. They realized that there was a decrease of 20% of the kilometers on this route of the pilot project. So there's a reduction in these the level of service, and there's video that I'm going to show you to explain. This is Belleville.
9:30 to midnight. That's what's considered late night around here. But while a bus with a Cinderella bedtime might seem quaint to some, this coach is actually cutting edge.
This is a brand new system that has not been used by any other transit service in North America.
Paul Buck is Belleville's transit manager, tasked with finding a way to overcome a problem as old as public transit itself. Up to now, buses here work the way public transit has been run for decades, a fixed route on a fixed schedule. But now this city of 50,000 people is moving to buses booked by an app because the fixed route concept was failing.
So we end up running buses around the city to locations where people may or may not be, and it can be inefficient.
So Belleville found what it hopes is a better way. An app-based system that turns fixed routes into buses on demand. Passengers can order a public transit pickup the same way they would order a ride-hailing service like Uber or Lyft.
You're able to just open up your phone and say, hey, come pick me up?
Yeah, I just booked it and said I want the bus at 10 o'clock and it just said okay, and then
How cool is that?
I like it. It's good.
Besides pickups, the system also allows passengers to pre-select a time they need to be dropped off, and it will formulate the trip based on that drop-off time.
Did you put in the time for pickup or the time for drop-off?
Time for drop-off.
Are you going to make it?
We're going to be close.
Don't, it's because we delayed the bus.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Well, I'm very sorry if we make you late.
That's okay.
Pickups and drop-offs aren't limited to a preset route. Have some shopping to do? Order a public transit bus to take you there and back.
Bayview Mall at the main entrance. Yes.
No, there's no stop there otherwise. This is just somebody
Correct.
asking you to go to the mall entrance
Yes.
with your bus to pick them up.
Right.
Okay. The system is able to take multiple passenger requests, adjust to each one in real time, factor those times and locations in relation to traffic conditions and the bus's GPS position, and instantly calculate the best possible route. As new requests come in or conditions change, that best route is immediately updated. The driver gets the real-time changes on his tablet, passengers on their phones. It's not quite artificial intelligence, but it sure is clever.
It is intelligent because it's constantly getting feedback and it's adjusting the routes as it's going along without really the need for any human to be managing that process.
Remy Dessa is CEO of Pantonium, the company that developed Belleville's app. He says besides the convenience it offers passengers, it has huge advantages for transit operators.
And if I dispatch effectively, I can put more people in my vehicle and run more efficiently. Similarly, I can run at fewer kilometers, less time, that's fewer driver hours, less distance, less cost.
He says his app has global potential. He envisions on-demand buses in suburbs that would connect to fixed routes in dense urban areas.
We're going to change the lives of people who use public transit.
Belleville's late-night bus is a trial run. In a year, they'll decide if they want to expand the service. That seems to be a given.
This is the solution that we've always been looking for years, but the technology wasn't there.
Now it is. And here, they're prepared to pull out all the stops to take advantage. Aaron Saltzman, CBC News, Belleville, Ontario.
It's a pretty neat idea, and Belleville isn't the only city experimenting with its public transit. Austin, Texas paired up with a company called Ville to help people living just outside the city. They can order smaller buses that shuttle them to the city's main bus routes. And further north in Arlington, where there is no bus service at all, Ville launched a ride-hailing van service. And here at home, the city of Innisfil, Ontario, 45 minutes north of Toronto, it abandoned the idea of public transit altogether. Instead, residents get subsidized Uber rides, which officials figure could save the town up to $8 million a year.
Pardonnez-moi pour le petit conflit de technologie.
Excuse all these technological mistakes here. At Innisfil, they have a smaller population, 36,000, and it's less density. Well, what they have done, they have a Uber system. They ask them to come to offer a service 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So it helped the community to get people within their community and to get onto this system. So they used the resources that were already placed, the cars that were there, to create this system with 1,400 drivers. So I have a video of Innisfil to show you.
18 years ago. The town has grown a lot since then, and the population has risen. So over that time, there's always been this glaring problem of transportation. It really just comes down to driving everywhere.
We've been trying to find an answer to our transit system challenge for a long time. You know, the truth is that with not a lot of population density, traditional transit just doesn't work.
There would be a big price tag attached to it, and it would service such a small portion of the municipality.
We really wanted to be able to connect the supply of vehicles that are moving around our municipality all the time with the demand of people who really need those rides but don't have a way to connect the dots.
Pretty quickly it became, why don't we just invite Uber?
We were floored that Uber was willing to customize the solution for Innisfil in a way that even local companies may not be interested in doing. When you open your Uber app and you put in your destination, it automatically comes up with Innisfil Transit as the option, shows you that it's a flat fee, and that's it.
It's really what you'd expect from a bus service price-wise, but just so much more convenient.
It is working for us, and we're looking at expanding it to different areas in the town.
It provides links to existing facilities like the Metrolinx GO station to carpool lots, where people can springboard to other transit systems or directly to their place of employment.
The ability to have that extra transit option when you need it is a huge game changer for people in our community.
It's one thing to see the statistics. It's another thing to actually hear stories where it's affected people's lives.
I retired about a year ago, and I decided to drive an Uber to supplement my income as a pensioner. Driving Uber enables me to put food on the table, pay the rent, and keep the lights on.
It's actually great to leave the car at home now. Friday nights and Saturday evenings that we like to go out with our friends. It makes it easy to grab a drink or two without having to worry about how we're getting home.
I do pick up a lot of the same people from Innisfil, so you kind of build a relationship.
You get to know people very well, and people trust you, and they feel comfortable when they see you. You can see the smile on their face when they recognize that they're getting you as a driver.
I think since Uber has come to our town, it's demonstrated an innovation kind of unique to our town.
Many municipalities of our size are having the challenges of transit that we're having. You know, why can't Innisfil be that model moving forward to do things differently?
It doesn't matter where I go. As soon as I say Innisfil, people say, oh yeah, those Uber people.
It's really changed the community as a whole for the better.
Going first is always a bit risky, but with risk comes reward.
As you can see, there are challenges that we have here in Dieppe, and it's the same elsewhere in Canada. It's always the same questions that's being asked. For Innisfil with Uber, it works like our accessible transportation. We subsidize a part of the drive, but the person pays $2-3. The difference in price, it's the municipality that funds it. So there are savings when you look at the purchase of a bus and maintenance and operations. So it costs Innisfil a lot more money. This is another formula. The last two formulas is the case of Cochrane in Alberta with a population of 25,000 like us. They have on-demand transportation as well. But it's like a ride share, curb to curb. It's new. It's a pilot project for them. And it's during the week, Monday to Friday and Saturday, 9 to 3 p.m. And it's on demand as a service, or there's an application or this website. And they use this type of bus. It's smaller, like we would like here in Dieppe. It's accessible. And their budget is about $550,000, and they received $6 million from the province of Alberta for bus stops, the purchase of buses, etc. So this is another option. In Okotoks, in Alberta, population of 28,000 like us, it's the same type of scenario. The only difference is that they use other types of vehicles. Similar to this, 7 passengers, accessible, and it allows it to go to smaller streets like what we discussed here. So it's similar to Okotoks. It's on-demand service. They offer it during the week. They have a budget of $700,000, but they were financed by the province as well. To conclude, I want to show you what we could have here in the municipality. There are options that we could look at. Firstly, we could have an on-demand service like in Belleville at night, 7 to midnight, because we know that people that work in restaurants or work in the industrial park, they need rides at night. So we could look at this scenario. Another one would be to have a community loop with defined zones, like Champlain, Amiro, perimeter. It could be a door-to-door service for people who have mobility issues. Another example would be with our shuttles. We have some now, but we could have a greater region to go as far as the airport, which doesn't have service now, right to the end of Dover. So this, we could try a pilot project, have a fixed route. So we have needs there. Another example would be a bylaw for ride sharing, when we talk about Uber, Lyft, etc. This could be a little bit more difficult, but I don't think any municipalities in the province have the possibility of using Uber. Mr. Simon could correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think so. Next, we have other options or combinations or scenarios to improve the mobility of our residents by reducing our carbon imprint and to maximize our resources and investments. I'll conclude here. I just want us to think about it. We have challenges that we have from 7-8 years ago, but we're getting ahead. But we're at the crossroads now. We should look at our vision to see how we can displace the greater number of people in the municipality. So I'll conclude here. Are there any comments, suggestions? I would like to have your feedback because I would like to know, administration would like to know which direction we're going to take. Thank you. Councillor Brideau, thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Mr. Richard. Your presentation was very interesting. It opens doors. We have other options that we don't know about in this region. I would like to know, with this type of service, with this type of system in our neighboring cities, what would be the impact? Would they hop along on this program with us? Or would we have to administrate, manage this program alone? Well, it depends. If we talk about Belleville and that kind of bus, of course, Kodiak takes care of our daily transportation. I've had some discussions with them, but nothing definite. But we would need their cooperation. We could have pilot projects, small scale. If council wishes, we could discuss it with Kodiak Transpo and put in place a pilot project. There would have to be changes and investments are necessary. Moncton doesn't have this type of system. No, this is unique. Belleville, it's a unique system. We're getting more of these, though. Councillor Laboutier, thank you, Your Worship. This was very interesting to see these different initiatives in Canada. I would like to suggest that with our budget in public transportation, 1.3 million, I think we should have an advisory committee that could discuss this. And we have Moncton just next door. Perhaps we could examine our resources within the municipality. I would like to see an advisory committee created by citizens and experts. Thank you. Councillor Thibodeau, thank you, Your Worship. One question was already answered, but I have the same suggestion as Councillor Boutier. We need a committee to study the different options to see what would be more beneficial for us, and perhaps we could amend the options if necessary. We have Amiro, Champlain. We got to fix screws, and other vehicles could go elsewhere. We should really sit with a committee and analyze all this. Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Alain. Thank you, Your Worship. Airbnb, no hotels. Skip the dishes, no restaurants. Technology is important. Option D, option E for me are the two options that we should retain. Agreement with the councillors around the table. We're working with Kodiak Transpo right now. And if you look at Innisfil, 105 kilometers from Toronto, and they have a GO train. So it's just within the limits of Innisfil where Uber works. So Moncton here being outside would only be within our limits. I would bring Uber in tomorrow morning. Belleville and their app is great, but in the long term we have resources. We have people with cars that want to work, so I think Uber is perfect. Maybe I'll go visit Innisfil next year. Thank you. Councillor Brideau. I have another question. Mr. Richard, I asked a question a few times. I already talked to you. We have a growing problem here in Dieppe with people with reduced mobility, and you told me that it wasn't a service that goes well. There's not always a bus to pick up people in wheelchairs, for instance. So in the future, in the near future, that is, because we have more and more people with reduced mobility that will need this service. And we must be in a position to offer it to them. That's my only comment. It's coming. People are moving into Dieppe. And they want to be close to the center in Moncton. They come to Dieppe and they need those services. And we're not quite there. Our transportation service is not completely accessible, and that's difficult. But our accessible service is efficient. We've had success, so there's a demand that's putting pressure on our budget, which is increasing every year. So we have to look at the ecosystem of transportation. We're trying to look at everything, and we want to ensure that people get around as much as possible. Perhaps we should have an advisory committee. I'll talk to Mark about it, and we should have an analysis done. Thank you. I think it's in the context of Dieppe we should look at this. I remember 2 years ago there was a federal program in our technology service, and the director wanted to get us in the same state as Belleville, but we weren't chosen by the federal government. Belleville was, and they took advantage of it. I have a bit of a criticism. I know he wasn't listening to us, he was elsewhere. Yes, there are many ways of doing things. You don't have to look very hard on the internet to find 10 or 15, but we really need to have a committee in place with citizens, experts, as it was mentioned by others. We need to look at what Dieppe needs. So I don't agree with certain members of council. If we have to wait after Moncton, it could take a lot of time. I think we have the means of doing it within the city of Dieppe. And once again, we'll be distancing ourselves from others. We were always looking ahead, and we attract citizens. Yes, so I'll leave that to a committee that will be created with citizens. There's a consensus in the municipality for that. Mr. Gaudette, I'll give you the mic again. You seem to be insisting. I was looking at the buses, the small buses. It's been 4 years now that we've been talking and talking and talking, and nothing gets done. We're going around in circles. We're talking about pilot projects, and the only thing we did in 4 years is to put in a program for people, youth less than 17 years old. We've had circuits change, but we haven't gone outside the box. I'm wondering when we will do that. When they mentioned a committee, I thought, yes, perhaps. But I would prefer to find somebody that will make the city think outside of the box. Look at what we have now as services and look at the improvements we could make with what we have now. And look at the future as well to see how we can change the service. We could deviate it. We have a contract with Kodiak and a system now, and we've been talking about small buses for 4 years, and I haven't seen one yet. I don't know if we'll get one in the next 3 or 4 years either, but I think that we should find something soon, not only an advisory committee, but we should find somebody that will take us to the next step. Thank you.
Well, because you're the last one, I'm going to add something to that. It's really something, one of the major critics from citizens comes back to what you say. We haven't reached anything. When we talk about changes that we want to do, something that is being told to me is really nice, but just as long as you have temporary projects, I can't make a decision to let go of my second vehicle because I don't really need a second vehicle if I can take a bus from point A to point B in any matter, whether it's the Uber system or the Belleville system or the make a decision is what I hear. Decide, do something, move. That's what I hear. There are ways of moving. I think that with the majority, I believe, of the council, it's really to maybe set up a committee, but with specific dates, like we do in business, where specific goals have to be reached by a certain date. If there's steps, other dates, but the question is move. So that being said, we thank you for your presentation, and we go to the next presentation, which is assessment, left turn from Champlain. And it's not a criticism, but we're going to hear a lot about it, I think. And afterwards, it'll be connection zone. Good evening, Madam Spencer. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So, as you're aware, Engineering Services was requested in fall to look into the left turn problems from Champlain Streets to Sainte-Croix and Beauséjour. So we were asked to assess the possibility of prohibiting that left turn at some times of the day, especially during rush hour. So just to start off with, we communicated with the fire services to see what kind of data they had concerning accidents. So tried to understand how serious the situation was. So as you can see, in 2019, there were 4 accidents in total, one of which only with injuries, and they were minor injuries. So a little bit of history on that neighborhood, the Virginia Street. So in 2003, when the city decided to well, we decided to add a second left turn from Acadie Street toward Champlain Street west, and also to have a specific lane on Champlain that was going down Acadie southward, and to extend Virginia Street. We had the services of an expert, Rue Sécure, to analyze the traffic in the neighborhood, and so also we had public consultations with the neighboring inhabitants, residents. The main concern at the time, and I'll go to the first slide to understand that people who lived on Virginia Street were concerned because now there would be a direct access towards Paul and Champlain at that intersection. And they were afraid that people would continue to turn left on Virginia from l'Acadie and that there would be shortcuts. So the volume would really increase on Virginia Street, which is a local street, which is not conceived for a lot of traffic, and it's also shared biking route. So at the time, at the construction of extension of Virginia, there are certain turns, all those indicated in red, that were prohibited at the time. And so when we're going up l'Acadie, we can't turn left on Virginia also. There's a missing red arrow, I just realized today. So when we were asked to look at the possibility of prohibiting movements when we're on Champlain Street, a direction towards the west, left turns towards Sainte-Croix and Beauséjour and Grand-Pré, what it means is that people who are going up l'Acadie, because they cannot turn left on Virginia, and if we prohibit those movements, it means that they would be obligated to do the trap in pale blue. So they'd have to go through a detour and go down l'Acadie and get up on Virginia on l'Acadie as they're going southward on Virginia left. That's the reason why the engineering services does not recommend prohibiting movements because of the detours that it would cause for the people living, the residents in the neighborhood. Obviously, as you know, in the future, we call it the extension of Paul Street, but in fact, it's l'Acadie, that would go back to meet Rue Paul. So people would generally take that way, and then at that point, we could probably prohibit those movements. The question could be asked, but would it be possible to permit left turns on l'Acadie? But as you know, there have been little islands constructed, and then there was the construction of Market Street, and Virginia and Market Street are not facing one another. So if we did permit left turns and having an intersection that would be functional, we'd have to realign Virginia so that it would meet with Market Street. So that is not planned. We'd have to purchase some businesses, and it's a fairly substantial work. So the recommendation from engineering to not prohibit those left turn movements. So, thank you. Questions from members of council? Monsieur Godet. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the study. A couple of comments. Maybe what's important for me is that the street be safe. So, but people have to make detours to go elsewhere. For me, primarily, it's the safety of the streets. You mentioned 2019. I don't know if there had been any accidents in the preceding years to show that left turn on Sainte-Croix, to show that there were 3 accidents within 6 months. And maybe it's only the Sainte-Croix Street that's the most difficult. The reason why I say Sainte-Croix is more difficult is because people who go eastward on Champlain, they stop for the light, there are lines. And sometimes there were lines of people. People going in the other direction try to cross that line. They can't see what's going on or what's coming up in the other lane. So that's why there are more accidents. There's also, it's busier because of the stores there around the Sainte-Croix area. Alors, so I accept your recommendation, but the only concern I have is that we're going to continue having accidents, and maybe in the future we'll have to maybe look at Sainte-Croix because of the amount of cars on Champlain. We'll have to reconsider. We did that for the for people who jump the store where the youth go to jump. Sky Zone. There's an entrance in Sky Zone that you cannot turn into. Unfortunately, some people do it anyway, but there's a stop there, exactly like on Normandy. People cannot turn left. They have to go to the light. So I presume that the reasons why they can go in there is for questions of safety. So priority is on safety. And then for those places, and then for Sainte Croix, we say that it's because of the congestion. So we have to look into it, and we have to make sure that we're making the proper decision. Thank you, Monsieur Godet. Any other questions, Monsieur Alain? The extension of Paul Street, what's the cost? Would it really help to bring Paul to l'Acadie on Champ? Would it help? First of all, the extension of Paul Street is evaluated as at 18 million. That's not really in our 5-year plan yet. But what it would permit, it would be, for example, prohibiting those movements, because the people who would be going north could probably use the extension to afterwards go on l'Acadie and then go to Beau Séjour from the right-hand side rather than I can answer after, but I have some things to say. I don't know if I answered your question concerning the cost, but yes, obviously it would help the traffic at the intersection of Champlain and l'Acadie. Concerning the intervention of Monsieur Godet, in both cases, for Normandy and Sky Zone, I think that's what you're talking, the business that you're talking about there, lights, traffic lights that give that you can turn left safely. It's a little farther, but in both cases there are traffic lights. So the situation is slightly different. But if it's the council's wish to really continue with the possibility of prohibiting those movements, I could recommend that we have a survey done with the residents of the neighborhood, but there are also the businesses to be considered, because these would be movements that would be prohibited. Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you, Madam Spencer. And we go now to the last item. The connection zone post-mortem on zone collection. Madame Duguay, Madame Pauline Cormier. So, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So tonight, we're giving you a little presentation on a connection zone, which was last year a pilot project. So in order to present a summary as specific as possible, we have a lot of statistics. We consulted the users, the businesses, to have the opinion of all these people. So this is what we're presenting tonight. First of all, concerning statistics of usership, I'll remind that the zone was open for 8 weeks from the 1st of July to the 2nd of September. And there were more than 13,000 people who participated in the different activities at Connection Zone, an average of approximately 1,625 persons per week, which is more than double than what we'd had the previous year as far as usership. One of the concerns that had been raised prior to the beginning of Connection Zone was the parking. So what we did is we took the statistics at different times of the day, every day, starting on the 8th of July, and we took the data till the September, end of September also, to see if it was different from the summer session or summer season. So what we did, and this is where we really noticed the one between the City Hall and the neighboring building, as well as along Champlain Street, just in front here. So what we found that on average there are approximately 13 available parking spots morning and afternoon. And here these stats were taken from the Monday to Friday during business hours, 8:30 to 4:30. At all times, there were more spaces available on Champlain Street. There were fewer than 5 available spaces, only 10% of the time. The story time at the library was the reason why there were fewer available spots. And then we also noticed no lack of parking spots concerning reduced mobility. So during the whole project, we received a lot of comments from the users. So I will not read all these comments, but congratulations mainly from the users. We did receive a couple of criticisms, suggestions, more so, I guess. For example, adding maybe games for the younger ones. There were a lot of offers for 5-6 years, but the preoccupation, the concern was for the younger ones. There were maybe not enough toys. Media coverage was really nice during the whole summer, and the success was mentioned, the success of Connection Zone, and also on social media, very popular on our different platforms. So during Connection Zone, starting August, we surveyed the users of the zone, and we were surprised by the number of respondents. We wanted to know who were the people who came to the zone, and the majority of them were people from the downtown area, those who answered the survey, how long they spent in the zone, and I would say that the majority would go there for more than an hour at a time. And it was mainly, basically, Wednesday, mercredi show. Wednesday show was basically the busiest day, and then the weekend days also, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. But the majority was during the evening, but there's still 36% of the people who would go to the zone during the day when there were fewer programmed activities. It was more people who would just use it in an informal fashion. 61% of the respondents who said that they purchased food or drinks when they came to the Connection Zone. And then among the most popular answers, what they enjoyed, was what came up most often were the games, the relaxing spaces, the family ambiance, atmosphere, the fact that it was a safe place to be. I think that's the most comment. That's the comment that we heard the most. Place, because there were no cars that were around the games, so the people, especially the parents, found that it was a very safe area. diversity of activities also, that there was the presence of le barbu, the bearded one, that was mentioned very often. In comments and suggestions for next year, there was basically more options of food on site to make sure that the pieces for the games could be out more often, more games, more swings, add shaded area, have a better signage on site. For example, for toilets or game instructions, maybe put, close the area with greenery and decoration. So, but really needed to be done again next year. Once again, comments that came up the most often, people felt that they had a feeling of belonging in the community. This is what the project was giving them, and it was the place to meet other members of the community. That it increased also the social vitality downtown during the summer. Friends, families from the outside were actually jealous of this area in Place 1604. So like I said, a lot of them asked for it to come back next year. They mentioned the feeling of belonging to the community. So that was one side. That was basically the users of the Zone Connexion. We also wanted the opinion of the different participants of the Place 1604 and also the opinions of the Art Center, the library, the market. So we sent a survey to all these people. 9 responses. 90% of them said that they heard comments concerning the Zone Connexion. 50% mentioned that there were positive comments. 40% mentioned that it was mostly negative, and 10% mentioned receiving positive and negative comments from their clients. We asked them if they'd received complaints concerning connection zone, basically traffic and parking. 66% said yes, and 33% said no. Then we wanted to know what time these complaints had been received, basically during the whole project, but still 16% was mostly at the beginning of the project. Concerning the type of business that was represented in the respondents, basically businesses and services, restaurants and cafes. So the participants, they want connection zones next year. 66% said yes, 33% who are undecided. So the good news is that nobody said they didn't want it to come back. Among the comments that we heard from the businesses, people found that there were a lot of family newcomers who came to Zone Connexion. Equally, businesses and the library mentioned the same thing. They also mentioned that it was busier this summer. So maybe possibility of using the parking around the ice rink. Majority of the complaints, actually, we were told, occurred during the first at the beginning of the project. So there was adaptation to the parking situation. Atmosphere was really great, was one of the comments. They said, generally speaking, people liked Connection Zone. Comment that there was no more rental of the locales following connection, maybe because the parking is, according to those people, businesses not enough for the clientele, but they still hope that it is going to increase next year. So now I'm going to give the mic to my colleague for the conclusion and recommendations. Thank you, Annie. So for the conclusion, it was an immense success, as you can see by the surveys. People are still mentioning it to us. They're looking forward to it open next summer. The positive aspects is felt safe. There's no traffic, that's obviously, because the young ones, they run around all over the place. It's a way where people can meet the bar, Le Barbu. That was very good for the zone. It has to be enhancements. People would like to have more games, maybe more shaded areas, because a couple of hours like that in the sun is some businesses had comments concerning traffic and parking. Most of the businesses are enthusiastic about it and would like it to come back next year. There's enough parking spaces downtown. The challenge is probably in the signage and traffic. So the committee here, we met our first one. That was the first one of 2020, last Thursday. So the recommendations in our policy, what we adopted in 2019, it has to be a relaxing area. There's really less structured games, so that was reconsidered, and 66% of the people want us to see it. So our recommendations that the zone collection happen again in 2020. We should have requests of interest for the kiosks. We'd like there are agreements for the market, for the food, so that would be, we wouldn't have to do that. We could have ice cream, for example, in zone. We have Le Barbu with us already, the bar. Continue the communication with the stakeholders in downtown. It's a very positive aspect. I hope we continue in the same way. And then to increase signage, it's not to enhance it or improve it, it's to add some. There should be more. Should remember that 2019 was year one, so it was a whole learning curve in this project. So our next steps would be to have more games, and also for the 0 to 4 years old. For youth, there's a budget. For 2020, there's a budget also set up for see if we can have some shading that we could do, see if we can find a partnership with somebody to do that with us. And we'll come back to council for the closure of the street. We'd like the same thing. We'd like to come once for the Saint-Jean-Baptiste on the 24th of June. We'd like to be there for them. So, and then we're going to ask you come twice to close it twice. So we'll be working with the Public Works. There should be no work there. I hope there are no projects on the table around Place 104. And also who might be interested in the food trucks to come to Connexion Zone. The figures that it basically brings to Centre-Ville, I mean, it helped. And then Mercredi Chaud was also helped. Mercredi Soir, it's known, it's very popular, so it would become even more popular. So for us, that's it. We're ready to answer your questions if you have any. I imagine that you do. Members of Council. Monsieur Thibodeau. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was wondering, what are you going to do for the requests for interests for the food trucks? Don't you think that putting them at the market, don't you think it's going to create conflicts with the merchants during the weekend, or will it only be there during the week? They already have a service. They already have 2 food trucks outside. I don't know if they're there all week, but so they already have that service. So they're ready for this this. And then the food trucks, it's not the same type of thing as the ones inside the market. So it's up to them. It's not a big request. It's just that we don't want to have to move the games and stuff that we have in there for so we know that they're all going to go to the Mercredi Chaud, so we want to get an agreement with the market to be able to work on that. Yeah, we're going to be having discussions with the market. We had discussions last year unsuccessfully, but I think there are a lot of potential partners who are there on Saturday morning, so discussions will be held. Madame Le Boutillier. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Concerning the surveys with the stakeholders of 1604, 9 respondents, but how many were there altogether? Because you mentioned 3. I think there were more than 20. And all those who were there, we sent the link for the survey with a reminder. Unfortunately, just 9 answered, but some of us talked to us and who had positive comments and who will be improving their offer because they realized how it was profitable for the downtown. So they didn't know exactly what to expect, but they already have ideas to improve their programming, not just that the city is going to be improving it, but the stakeholders want to improve their programming. My next question is on a recommendation. Parking and traffic, are we going to prohibit that around the ice rink? Are we going to consider that, or it will be traffic during the day, closed at certain zones, just where the zone?
It's not the recommendation of staff. A lot of people like the safety in this area because there were no cars. It's still up to council to make a decision. Well, there's no other alternative to suggest for now? No. We asked the question to engineering service to look at Champlain to see if there could be a turn at the end of the lane for traffic. The traffic lights will be improved, and those who have access will have to look at possible options. We have underground parking too. So we need a quick solution. So I asked engineering to look at the options and costs to ensure that traffic will be safe with safe turning lanes as well. Some stakeholders told us about challenges for the people that were clear connection zones, so we're looking for solutions to those challenges. We can't please everybody, but we're working with the businesses and stakeholders to minimize all problems. Councillor Alain, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I know 2 types of people, residents, the commercials that were touched the most, beside connection. 40% say they had negative opinions. You only had 9 respondents out of 20, so that's a big challenge. We can't accept that. We need a greater participation of people. We have to know what the comments are. People are paying taxes all through the year. And they're subsidizing the connection zone. Firstly, we have to increase the respondents to the services. We should even go to the doors and ask them what's going on. And secondly, I agree on page 71 on the parking. There's a perception about parking downtown. It's everywhere in Canada. It's the same perception. But if we enforce the fact that there's no parking, that's an issue. I went to downtown all summer. Basketball zone was used very much. So perhaps we could use the parking during the day as well. So we should really study the parking aspect seriously. We have to ask a question. Are there any other places in the city of Dieppe to make a connection zone? I don't have the answer. I know everybody enjoyed it this summer, but are there other areas? We had an exceptional year. 7 out of 8 mercredi shows at temperatures of 35 degrees. If it's raining, I don't know if we'll be so successful. With the map on Marché Street, is there something we could do? Some businesses have given us negative comments, and at 40%, that's quite high. I'd like to get more information from responders. And parking should be open till at least 5 p.m. And we should see if we could reconfigure the connection zone with other options. Thank you. No other questions? It's lit. I have a comment. It makes a lot of sense what Councillor Allais said. We had an event center, and we were wondering if there's something else we could do there. Would it be possible with connection zone and the eventual center? So we could use both areas. But I agree fully with what Councillor Allais has said. Thank you. The initiative of last year is part of the mandate on development phase in downtown for animation and life and have collaboration with people in downtown. This is our first experience and a pilot project which was successful. We recommend to continue communication with the stakeholders in downtown. It's very important. We must talk to people that work and own businesses downtown. We're going to continue doing that. The priority is the safety of the people. We need a safe place so that our downtown will be vibrant. We'll not have 100% satisfaction with everybody, but to change it to another area, I think we'll lose the charm of what we wanted to have in our downtown. There's cooperation with the hotel, the art center, and the Café Archibald, Copper Branch, everybody that's around 1604 place. So that's the reason for being of the connection zone. We want discussions with people in downtown. We want to find a balance. And with respect to parking, we must be ambassadors. And I think we have enough places. And a lot of people are within walking distance as well, and we want to invest in phase 2 of our parking, like we talked in our budgetary process, a place that is lit behind Rue du Marché. So that's an investment that we'll be doing. So that's part of the overall context. To deplace connection zone outside downtown would be wrong. We'll come back to you with other aspects, but we want to have discussions with people downtown now. The first step was to have a report and a survey. Thank you, Mr. Milasa. Councillor Reda? I think there should be a balance between people, but the objective is not to move. Sometimes we don't always have the right picture. Today was the first time we just spoke about safety. I never heard about it before from public safety. Nobody gave us information on that. So it's hard to make comments if I don't have all the information. A few people came to see me. The objective is find a balance, increase the number of responders, and the 40% should be decreased. There are people paying enormous taxes. And we should probably listen to them a bit more. Thank you. The connection zone and its parking had a bad start during the first week or first few days because there were bad directions. So from the start, it was bad, and it increased the tension between some businesses, especially the dentists, because people that go see them go twice a year from everywhere on the territory. So it was frustrating for them to look around for parking because there's not enough signage. We must settle that. We have to have a better parking system. We were talking about the possibility of using the web for parking. We do it for buses. It's the same for parking. There are spaces. We know that. We did a survey. So we must find a solution for that time of year. We have the figures. Not everybody can walk 500 meters or even 200 meters. So we've done surveys. During specific times, not the whole day. The results are there. Yes, there's frustration. But to develop the downtown urban community area, the combination of urban and community is quite a challenge. You can't build it within one season. I hope everybody wants to work together and to develop this downtown community downtown. Why? Because we want to help the businesses that are there. They have a clientele, a direct clientele. You can't build that in one season. We need people in downtown. The council, for quite a while now, has a mandate to build the downtown. It doesn't take 2 years, 5 years, 10, 15 years. It will continue. You know of all the projects we have on Champlain Street. We want more people downtown. We have traffic problems, yes, but there's a lack of space for our downtown. We were talking about Paul Street and the extension, or Acadie Street that will join Paul Street. The vision is simple. We want to close one traffic line in each direction. Why? We want to redirect traffic to Paul Street. So the intersection in Champlain and Acadie will be less busy. That's why we have Alain Gillette Street, and we've invested, so we want to redirect traffic outside of Acadie so that gradually more people will be walking. There are apartment buildings being built, more people are coming in, they're going to want to walk around downtown. So I know all councillors are looking at the long term as well as our business people. We have growing pains perhaps, but we still have to keep the discussions open. I want to see the results of discussions from engineering. We could maybe have more fluid traffic around the parking lots. That's all for me, and that's it for tonight. Thanks, everybody. Have a good evening.